Hey everybody, Ozark Elman here. I want to talk really quick about some of the most frustrated guys I have met on what they call the right, or the so-called right wing or everything. I know a lot of that gets overcomplicated, oversimplified, many varying degrees and ideas, from 10-year behind conservative, who are the pundits and actual politicians, to the hardline conservatives who always stuck to their principles but are frustrated because none of the people they elect or their pundits are actually saying anything that concerns them, and again are just running 10 years behind. Um, Anything from the libertarian to the more what would be perceived as the authoritarian. But the irony is, who the media, the from Hollywood, all of the most anti-Western, uh, you should say, media and organizations, bureaucracy, everything that they portray as being the frustrated right wing guy, especially those of us of Western descent, the Western people, European diaspora, the founding people, whatever you'd want to call us. It's not the person who is so ethnically aware. It's not the person who speaks up for their people by name. In fact, these are the most fulfilled and white pilled and in many ways optimistic people I have ever met. Because there's hardly anything more frustrating than being denied your ethnic identity. And really, perhaps not even being that consciously aware of it. But that's exactly what's happened to us. According to the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, to be ethnically American is defined as being born in America of European descent. In other words, if there's any type of ethnic cohesion at all, and there is, that is basically what is the ethnic tie to this nation. Now, we stopped along the way, and quite deliberately, I might add, we stopped doing that. Once you're disenfranchised from your own identity, and again, go ahead and Google, look up, read through white racial identity development. It's tied to critical theory, tied to Frankfurt School. All of these things are done deliberately. All of these things are explicitly and openly anti Western when you look at the, go ahead and read the statements by the people who founded these ideologies, is that they want us to be disenfranchised from our own ethnic identity. And of course, well, how do you do this? Well, if many other folks are around you, new neighbors, etc., then, well, the good old people aren't going to want to offend them. Your flag as an ethnic symbol, literally the ethnic symbol of the founding of your people. You're a quarter Italian from, the grandfather. They came over a little bit later. Well, of course, the Anglo Saxons, the Franks, any Western, any European people has taken a few centuries to form from some different but related tribes. Splitting apart and then coming back together is the thing that every Western people have done since back in the steppe. They spoke Indo European languages, Indo European cultures, Indo European peoples, just like how the French went from the Gauls to become the French today, speaking a Latin language and a largely Latin, multi influenced, but still European culture. That's exactly who we are. Just like the Afrikaner in Africa knows exactly where his ancestors came from and the source of his language and his culture, so do we. But the most frustrated right wing guy, and this is the most, I say all that to build up to this, because this is the core point here. The most frustrated guy I meet on the right is the one who still listens to Crowder and Poole and maybe occasionally watches Fox News even though he doesn't trust them, who sees everything that happens on the border and sees everything changing around him, and he knows that he's not allowed to talk about it. And that, again, that right there, that is what frustrates him. He knows that all the changes, the Western nations being flooded by non Western people, largely illegally, but he knows whether it's legal or not. At the end of the day, what difference does it make when you think about your ancestors and then you think about your descendants and you think, whether you know it or not, your own people as an extension of your literal physical blood family? Because all of history, this has been the norm. The Anglo Saxons, who are made of different but related Celtic and Germanic peoples that took a few centuries to form, as I mentioned, to who we are as a people, disenfranchised and not allowed to speak up for our own ethnic identity. And the old Betsy Ross flag and so many of the symbols and the eagle as our own ethnic symbols. Oh no, they say. That's a symbol of a country, a nation, a government. The conservative perspective largely recognizes that the government is separate somehow from the symbols in the nation, whatever that is, and yet we are frustrated because, again, we're playing whack a mole. That's really what it comes down to. We play whack a mole with the various issues that negatively affect our people. We form movements, the Tea Party, MAGA, etc., in order to address the concerns that face our people, that negatively impact our people, the forced diversity, whatever you would want to call it. That again is at our expense and negatively impacts us. The fake inflation that hurts us from starting a family, forcing both parents to work to keep up with it, reinvesting everything you make, and all of the things on and on and on that make it more difficult for us to have families and have kids because we are stuck in this system that we are fully, again, paying for taxes, mortgage, college, etc. They say, oh, multi-generational wealth, and the vast majority of us don't have that. Again, because of the artificial inflation, we know what's going on. You have a large sense of what's going on. We keep playing whack-a-mole, and we keep trying to keep our heads above water, and we're having kids and doing everything that we can. And yet, then, the people who are doing this, our own elites, so-called, say the billionaires who are ethnically similar to us, are about 60% of the billionaires, which is exactly what we are as percentage of the population, even though that's supposed to be so-called privilege. Your own statistical accomplishments are counted against you as privilege, and then you see our own people. There's no in-group preference. In fact, they actually fund the causes against us. And they get up and wag their finger, hey, you're not having kids. We got to bring in people, even though increased automation and everything is against this notion, does not make any common sense to the common man with common reasoning skills. And then you wonder why. And then you look at, well, it's been hard to keep those folks in line in the past. From the West Virginia coal miners, just weren't willing to put up with a lot of nonsense. Historically, we have never been too tolerant of, tyranny and taking our ability to feed our families and disrupting us in our lands and our homes. So the only way to disenfranchise before the cycle of history repeats itself and the people realize and get fed up with it is to, again, water down their numbers, water them down, to perhaps even totally ethnically destroy them in the long run. Because we are so frustrated, the guy constantly playing whack-a-mole. But then, even when he forms a group, the Tea Party, MAGA, whatever, to speak up for the issues affecting his people, not even in the name of his people, then he's still labeled white supremacist, evil, bigot, racist, etc., fill in the blank. And we're still running with a system that we know is against us. But that man needs to speak up on the basis of his people. He needs to reintroduce himself to his own ethnic identity and start to embrace it as such. That is the gateway to the white pill. But the Afrikaner has already, unfortunately, learned the hard way and has been forced through hardship to have ethnic cohesion and self-identity. We have to learn and embrace now. Because our own kindness has been used against us, our so-called tolerance, again, has been used against us. And we have to re-embrace our own identity because that right there, that is the white pill. That's what's been missing as guys have been playing whack-a-mole with these issues affecting their people, but then not speaking up on behalf of their people. Embrace your identity. Embrace your ethnic identity as an American, as an old stock. Whether your grandfather just came off at Ellis Island in the last century, or hundreds and hundreds of years before that. Again, like I said, in Old Webster's Dictionary in 1828, that is who we are ethnically as a people. A people are defined archaeologically, historically, as having at least somewhat common ethnicity, language, and culture. We have a common Indo-European ancestry, a common Indo-European culture, and a common European language. So embrace it, own it. And again, you have the moral high ground there against anybody who says you can't do that, who says you can't embrace those symbols as your ethnic symbol. Because anybody else, more than openly, celebrates their culture and their background, perhaps even more so because they are in now a Western land as a non-Western people. You have every right, and absolutely you should. Your descendants depend on you. Your people depend on you. Your ancestors are absolutely looking down upon you and saying, Western man, what are you going to do for your people? Are you going to speak up for them against their own destruction and their interests as a people? This is Ozark Gilman. Y'all have a good one.